Hey there, this is Chad from Zombie Fight Shark. Welcome to episode 4 of our COMPLEX-1 Synthesizer Complete walkthrough in Reason. And in the first, this is actually the 5th episode, because there's an episode 0 in which we talk about the basics of synthesis. Then we covered the performance bar, then the complex oscillator, then oscillator 3, and on this episode we're going to discuss the filter. So let's get into it. So if you're familiar with synthesis, then the filters and all of the weird things you can do with them is where it really starts to get fun. This filter is fairly basic in its implementation, but that doesn't make it any less useful or interesting. So let's take a look at how you actually use it. Now, right now, I've got this plain Jane initiated patch. Let's change the shape of this a little bit and get some harmonics going so we can do cool stuff with the filter. So that's a start. So first, how do we actually route into and out of the filter? Let's talk about that. Seems obvious because there's this plug labeled in, and you would be correct to assume that that's where you go. You plug it in. It goes in there from mix or whatever. In. Yep. Then running out of it. So you see at the bottom here, there's an LP and an HP, low pass and a high pass filter. So, all right, I'm gonna use low pass, and then we're gonna just do that. So there's our low pass. And then you also can route the high pass as well. You can do both at the same time if you so desire. And you can kind of hear it shifting from one to the other, as they don't overlap perfectly. So it has potential to do some unique things there. Normally you pick one or the other. You're going to do the high pass out or the low pass out. So whatever you're feeling, whatever your particular piece of music requires. For simplicity's sake, we'll run the low pass out for a lot of these examples. Let's go back up to the top of the filter here and take a look at drive. So drive is what it does on most things, and if you watch the wave shape at the bottom, you can see kind of squares it out. It's overdriving that wave. So it's just pushing the sound, pushing more harmonics, pushing the amplitude of the wave to drive to, which can distort it given the right circumstances. And we'll probably play with that here in a minute. So what else we got here? So we got this giant frequency knob, which I've already demonstrated, but let's just, see what you can do with it. There you go. It's cutting frequencies, boosting frequencies, doing its thing. More importantly, resonance. Add that resonance to it so you can get funky. Oh, it's getting wet. So that's fun. What's more fun though is when you automate that kind of stuff. So let's take a look at our LFO here. We're going to do a smooth random wave. Looks a little something like this. And then we want to automate some cool wet wobbly wobbles. with our filter. And just going down the list here of what they're called, you've got filter frequency amount 1, filter frequency amount 2, not that frequency, but filter FM amount. We'll get to that in a second. And then filter resonance amount. Again, we'll get to that in a second. So wobbly wobbles, as I was saying, we're going to run this dude to the LFO. And let's hear some wobbles. And always remember, after you route this, you have to actually turn your mount up, like so. Boom, all the way. And you might notice that's not very rhythmic, and that's because it's not a rhythmic LFO. You know, this is not synced to any time. And you'll also notice that this is, so at 100%, the sweeps are really hard. You know, it goes, it frequently will go out of range. You know, sweeps all the way out of range. So if the sweeps seem too deep, then you can just turn the amount down and it won't do as much. So, you know, now we got some cool wibbly wobbles and we're like, you know, I like where this is going, but I want it to be even more interesting. So that's where this FM, or this frequency 2, we're gonna now mess with that one and add something to it. And this is jumping ahead a little bit, but I'm gonna take this LFO coming out of the clock and LFO on the bottom and route it up here, which is a synced LFO. So now I've got two LFOs applying to my oscillator, and one of them is synced, one of them is not. So it adds a little bit of randomness to it. And so now that we've got this interesting sound, I'm going to add some more drive. Let's just see what it does. So you can see how now it's starting to kind of overdrive it a little bit and push it into a little bit more interesting of a sound. It's got a real acid feel to it. So that is one thing that you can do with your two frequency automations right there, frequency routings rather. Let's play with this FM one because FM is a beautiful noise. So you're probably saying to yourself, wow, that's not a big difference from what we were just hearing a second ago. So I'm going to reroute some things and combine them so that we hear a slightly, we'll hear some frequency modulation here. All right, so I have rerouted several things here. Now I'm using all my oscillators. I have the mix running into the filter, and then I have my other oscillator running into the FM modulation, so you have a second frequency to actually modulate. And then to make it interesting, I took this LFO and I routed it to the shape, so it'll change the harmonics, and the shape will change the harmonics. And then I also routed the other LFO to the pitch modulation, so we'll have some kind of fighting going on. So you can hear that FM modulation, frequency modulation. We'll boost it a little more. And you really start to get into these kind of, to me, kind of alien sounds that they're very interesting. Now, the resonance... you have, again, you can route whatever you want into resonance. So let's just see what happens if we route our oscillator into resonance. And this is the kind of fun thing where you can just route anything anywhere, you know. Your normal stuff that you would do with resonance, we sort of looked at that before. So, which is fine, you know, nothing wrong with that. But you can do lots of other things with it too. So I routed my velocity to my resonance knob, so when I hit the note hard, it actually starts self-resonating, so you get resonance feedback. And then when I hit it softly, and I don't have to go very far, so if I turn this amount that it's starting at, so there it's a little bit more reasonable, so I can actually play hard if I need to. So there's a real kind of butter zone there of where you can... sorry about that. You can go right over the edge. But that's one of many things you can do to play with that resonance there. Just another quick example. So I've routed the LFOs back the way they were before. So I'm routing the oscillator 3 into the FM. So I can get some interesting harmonic whatnot going on, harmonic content, and then I'm going to turn the FM down just a little bit here. So I'm playing pretty soft, and then you can hear it change that sound as I'm playing harder. And then, just to make it interesting, boost the drive. And it just gets a little more interesting, a little more flavor to it. So that's just a handful of ways that you can use the filter in Complex-1, and we'll definitely explore more in the future, but I hope that gets you off to a good start, and like and subscribe, you know how that stuff goes. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and I will try to get to them as quickly as possible. In the next episode, we're going to be talking about the low-pass gate, otherwise known as the LPG right here. And it's an interesting character, so definitely tune in for that one. Thanks for your eyes and ears on this one. I'll see you next time. Cheers.